And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, November 21st. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain, and many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com, and here are some of those news stories for the day. Members of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes want to vote on whether the tribe should distribute the rest of a $150 million federal settlement to its members or keep it for tribal programs. A group called the People's Voice presented the council with a petition containing 1,414 signatures of enrolled tribal members asking for a referendum vote, according to Representative Jerry Ruler of St. Ignatius. CSKT spokesperson Rob McDonald said this week the tribe's legal team was reviewing the petition. The tribe received the money as part of the Salazar or Nez Perce settlement in a lawsuit over federal mismanagement of assets and natural resources held in trust by the federal government for the tribes. The council voted to distribute just over half of the money to its members and keep the rest for various tribal programs. In September, about 7,800 tribal members each received $10,000 apiece. Petitioners want another $9,000 paid out to each tribal member. Residents of a North Dakota town where a woman and 3 of her grandchildren were shot and killed gathered for an evening prayer service on November 19th. Clinical psychologist Bob Edwards traveled from Minot to Newtown on the Fort Berthold Reservation for the services to help people cope with the situation. Martha Johnson, 64, and 3 of her grandchildren, Benjamin Schuster, 13, Julia Schuster, 10, and Luke Schuster, 6, were gunned down in their home November 18th while Johnson's husband, Harley, was out hunting. Another Schuster sibling who was in the home was not hurt and called authorities. Federal investigators are looking at a Newtown man who committed suicide in nearby Parshall late on November 18th as a person of interest in the case. Tribal Chairman Tex Hall told the Associated Press that authorities have told tribal officials that the town of about 2,000 people is safe. A foundation backed by professional golfer Notah Begay III has identified New Mexico as ground zero for finding better ways to address obesity and diabetes in Native American children. In a report released November 19th, Begay's foundation pointed to New Mexico's large Native American population and what it described as dramatic health and educational disparities. The foundation has spent the past year discussing with tribal leaders, health experts, and others the challenges of dealing with obesity and diabetes. More than 250 stakeholders participated in those discussions. The result is a set of recommendations that call for everything from awareness campaigns and more research to the strengthening of programs that promote language and traditional cultural activities. The foundation's work was funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and PNM Resources, Inc. A judge has entered a not guilty plea for a man at his arraignment in federal court in the death of a 4-year-old boy whose charred remains were found on a central Michigan reservation. Anthony Bennett has been in custody on another charge since Carnell Chamberlain's remains were found June 28th at a home on the Saginaw Chippewa Reservation about 70 miles north of Lansing, Michigan. He was living with Carnell and the boy's mother. A November 7th grand jury indictment charges him with first-degree murder, assaulting a child, assault with a dangerous weapon, animal cruelty, and witness tampering. Bennett stood moot at his appearance in Bay City Federal Court. He remains jailed, and his next court date is scheduled for November 27th. It's been more than 6 decades, but New Mexico veteran Wilson Hollina has finally been recognized for his services during World War II. Hollina was set to receive 5 military medals from U.S. Senator Tom Udall during a ceremony at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center in Albuquerque on November 20th. The senator's office says Hollina's battalion defeated German bunkers at Utah Beach in 1944 and guarded Adolf Hitler's top generals in Stuttgart. Wilson personally guarded one of the highest-ranking generals before returning to Nuremberg to celebrate the end of the war. Helena's family contacted Udall's office in October to verify his medal eligibility. The medals presented included the Good Conduct Medal, the Silver Service Star, and the World War II Victory Medal. Leonard Peltier's current attorney, Michael Kuzma, has admitted that the famous attempt to blame the killing of two FBI agents in June of 1975 on an obscure and unnamed Mr. X was all a concoction. Kuzma, on Blog Talk Radio interview with David Martinez on November 13th of this year, admitted that the Mr. X scenario that Leonard Peltier endorsed, discussed, and promoted for many years in many different forums was concocted, supporting a 1990s interview by News from Indian Country reporter E.K. Caldwell, quoting Dino Butler as saying, "The Mr. X scenario was a lie to make it look like somebody else was guilty of shooting those FBI agents." The National Book Awards has honored Louise Erdrich for The Roundhouse. The Associated Press reported for a short time last week that Erdrich had been awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature, and the Native News Update last week reported that. We apologize for that error. Erdrich, 58, has been a published and highly regarded author for nearly 30 years, but had never won a National Book Award until being cited last week for her story, the second of a planned trilogy about an Ojibwe boy in his quest to avenge his mother's rape. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to say miigwech for joining with us, and come back again soon.